because the problem is never the problem.
Kylie, thank you so much for accepting my invitation.
It's great to be here, thank you.
We're enjoying some beautiful weather today in Brisbane.
It's a beautiful day. It's been quite rainy up here for the past week, so it's great to be out in the sun.
I've heard that everything was underwater.
Yep. I was camping, so that wasn't much fun, so it's beautiful to be out today.
Beautiful, beautiful. Look, the reason why I wanted to have this conversation is, first of all, I really like what you're doing, how you're helping entrepreneurs and real estate people take more action in the direction of their own dreams and get more clarity and also accountability through how you help them.
Yep.
And also how you helped other people and how you also helped me over the course of last year to sort of get in the right state of mind, so you're in the best position to deliver on what you need to deliver on. So yeah, I really like what you're doing. If you can maybe tell us more about how you got to this point and what sort of drives you to do what you do coaching wise.
Okay, beautiful. So I guess I've grown up and I've had a very challenging upbringing and a challenging life. And I had quite a lot of successes as well, and I started investing in property 20 years ago and had a lot of really great successes from there, and also had some significant setbacks as well along the way. And during that journey I started doing some property investment programs and personal development programs, and from there I learned about personal development and learned about coaching. And so coaching was this thing that I've always been interested in. So I've always bought self-help books since I was a teenager. I've always loved things like a TV series in Australia, which is Australian Story, like hearing about people's lives and how they've overcome adversity. And when I did these trainings, I realised that there was this industry called coaching, and I realised that's the thing that lights me up. I want to be able to help and support other people to get through their difficult times in life, because I've been able to do that myself. And I guess I'm just wired to think optimistically and positively, and I recognise that a lot of people aren't necessarily wired that way, or they don't have the same ability to deal with challenges in the way that I was able to. So I trained to become a coach. I really love what I do. It's also helped me to understand myself better, and it's helped me to overcome some setbacks that I've had from the past. And I really feel that when I'm coaching and supporting other people in a really positive, healthy, empowering way, not just listening to their problems, but listening to their problems in a way that we can find solutions and move past them. From the challenges I've had and from the experiences I've had, it helps. I can find resolution with that because I feel like I have a greater depth of understanding and real life experience to understand how people are truly feeling deeply. Does that make sense? So that the deep down fears, the deep down struggles, the deep down challenges they've had because of the setbacks or the challenges that they've faced.
Yeah, I totally understand. So how does it actually work specifically? Because I remember when I was younger and I played tennis and I was working with a psychologist at some point. My colleagues from tennis were saying that I am screwed mentally and that something's wrong with me, that I am seeking advice and somebody to help me navigate the sort of challenges that I have, that maybe my parents were not in a best position to do so. So I'm wondering how does it work? How does a session with you look like?
And I think, I'll explain it, but I think it's really healthy to say that there used to be stigma around reaching out and asking for help. And I think that's why a lot of people have ended up with some mental health challenges, or some really big, they've experienced some really challenging times because they haven't been able to reach out and talk about how they feel. Like, a lot of people feel like there's nothing really wrong with their life, but they don't feel right either, or they're getting feedback that, as you said, that something's not right with you. So with coaching, what I'm trained in doing is asking quality questions. So I'm no expert in anyone else's life. Like, you're the expert in your life because it's your life. I'm the expert in my life, even though I still need to reach out and I need to be supported along the way. But as a professionally trained coach, you're trained to ask quality questions and listen to what's being said, as well as listen to what's not being said. So people will say that this is the problem, but really what I'm listening out for is what's happening way down here, so that we can work on that stuff, which then clears the problem that people present with. because the problem is never the problem. Does that make sense?
Yeah, definitely. So it's always something deeper. Like
Yeah.
if your back is hurting, it's probably something wrong with your neck. So you need to get a better understanding of what's the source.
Yeah, it's like that referred pain that we get. And so often, what I uncover is it's perhaps a challenge with people's physical health, or it's a challenge with the way that they're thinking about situations, or perhaps it's some experiences that have happened in the past and they've got these emotional anchors to, and when they're wanting to move forward and make changes in their life, they just seem to keep hitting these invisible brick walls and they don't even know what they are or why they're there, but it's this stuff that's been anchored from the past. So you can use some NLP-based techniques and some other coaching techniques to help people to clear those blocks that are holding them back.
Beautiful. Can you share maybe go a bit deeper? What are those techniques, the NLP techniques, and what does NLP stand for?
NLP stands for Neuro-Linguistic Programming, and in a very simplistic explanation of that, it's the thoughts we think and the words we speak create our reality. It's also, if we want to achieve results in our life, then we need to model excellence. So we need to model people who are getting the results that we seek. Some of the techniques, so with doing timeline therapy, it's where, and this may sound a little bit woo-woo in the, if you're a very logical thinker, but it's where we go back and we, someone may be feeling a sense of anxiety about something. So you ask some questions around that, and then you do a technique when, you ask that person, you're going through, obviously a process here. When did they first remember feeling this feeling? And then during this process, just trusting the answer that comes to mind, and it may be, when I was 6, or when I was 5, or when I was 3. And then we do some questioning around what happened there and do some techniques which clears the emotion, because that's the root cause of when that emotion first started. Perhaps it was when someone first started to feel like they weren't good enough, or that they weren't lovable, or that it's not safe for them to speak up. And you do some work around clearing those emotions, and all of a sudden, like the invisible brick wall that they were facing in their adult life, you've been able to heal that aspect of them, their inner child, and then they're no longer responding in the old way to situations that are happening now. Does that make sense?
Definitely. Can you give us maybe an example from your experience of a sort of a past trauma that was eliciting a response in an adult person?
I can share a personal experience if you like.
Yeah.
So I have had a lot of challenges speaking up, so having a voice. So when I was younger, I made events mean, so I'm owning how I was feeling, that it wasn't safe for me to speak up, that it wasn't safe for me to have an opinion, like emotionally safe is what I mean. And so I would always be quiet, I wouldn't speak up. I became the people pleaser because I never wanted to get in trouble, I never wanted to do the wrong thing or say the wrong thing. And as I've stepped up into more leadership roles, where those roles have required me to come up with new ideas, to challenge the status quo, to bring new ideas and to speak up and even to present to groups of people, I found that incredibly difficult because of all the old emotions and the old stuff I had from when I was a child. So I worked with my coach to clear the negative emotions and the negative thought patterns I had around that, and then now I don't have as much problem. It's still an area that I'm growing in because it's a skill that I hadn't developed from the younger years. However, I no longer have the same feelings and emotions that I used to have when I was put in those situations. And I've even had an example this week of a situation where I was challenged by somebody and then I was able to respond to them in a very empowered way for me, which I wouldn't have been able to do 5 years ago, which is demonstrated by the work that I've done on myself to clear the old patterns and the old programming.
Beautiful. How do we do that? What actual work can somebody do on themselves to sort of clear out those patterns?
I think it's better when that's led by a practitioner, so someone who's qualified and experienced, because there's only so far that we can go when we're working on ourselves. So I'm very self-aware. I've done a lot of coaching training. I do a lot of reading. I do a lot of research into who we are as people, what makes us tick, why do we do the things that we do. But I'm not able to clear all of my own problems or all of my own stuff. So I work with my coach regularly because the value of that is having someone who's is listening out for, like I said earlier, listening out for your language and hearing your limiting thinking and your limiting thoughts, and then challenging those, and then being able to have the techniques to help you to work through that stuff. Does that answer your question?
Yeah, definitely. So yeah, fundamentally, if you want to clear out certain patterns, then higher level of awareness that sort of is brought by working with a professional is definitely a move forward. But I'm just wondering now, what would be, in your opinion, a way in which we could also sort of take care a bit of ourselves, so we're in our best mental state more time or most of the time?
Yep, great question. So awareness is the key to change. So it's becoming self-aware and noticing within yourself what's working and what's not working. So if you're always feeling stressed, okay, what is actually the cause of my stress? So sitting with that, it's noticing that stress is there. The emotions that we feel within our body are messages from within our body. So it's listening out for what's going on. If we're feeling anxious, what is it that's creating us to feel anxious? If we're feeling overtired or always feeling short-tempered, okay, what's going on here? And then going, okay, well, maybe I haven't been looking after myself, or I haven't been getting enough sleep. I've been working too hard. Perhaps I've been pushing to achieve goals that are really big goals, and I haven't really thought about whether those goals are aligned with what it is that I want. So firstly, it comes down to asking yourself, it's a bit awareness, and asking yourself some quality questions of where am I really at and what's really going on here? And from there you can start to make some changes.
Yeah, definitely. Now, as I was listening to you, I remember that, sort of going back to the previous point, that working with a coach, besides helping you remove some potential patterns, I feel like also empowers you. I remember that a lot of times before a few sessions that we've done, I entered with a sort of feeling of hopelessness, that I could not see the light at the end of the tunnel for some certain situations. And then at the end, sort of through the fact that I came up with an action plan, I was starting to see the light at the end of the tunnel. So I'm wondering, what do you think would be the best solutions for people that, I don't know, maybe they're going through depression, or maybe they have certain bad thoughts in their mind, to sort of get ahead of the curve and be better?
Well, there's a couple of aspects here that I can talk about. One is talking to someone. So I think that, as you touched on when we had sessions, when you're in your own head and you've got all these things going around in your own head, it can be really hard to get clarity. So in the speaking with someone about that stuff, then you can get that clarity back. And even sometimes when you're not even talking to a trained professional, it's just being able to verbalize what's going on for you, then that can help bring clarity in itself. Like, it's quite cathartic to be able to do that at times. So if you're doing that but you're not working with a professional, it's being very mindful about who you're sharing with and who you're talking to. So if you're talking to someone who's going to be saying, oh gosh, poor you, and all that kind of stuff, that's not going to help you to feel better. Like, you need to be choosing the people that you're speaking to and that you're sharing with, so that they're going to help you to move forward and help you to get distinctions and to get clarity, not just speak to someone having, a bit of a sob story kind of conversation. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So having an empowering conversation. And then there's also, like, when you touch on depression, where I feel that coaching really fits is that when people are feeling like there's nothing really wrong with my life, but I'm actually just not feeling really good. I'm not feeling good either, and I'm starting to have more bad days than good days, and I don't feel like I need to go to the doctor and get any kind of medication, or I don't want medication, but I know that I'm not feeling right, and it's starting to affect my relationships. It's affecting the way I feel about myself. Perhaps it's affecting your business or your work. And this is where it's like you're in that middle bit where things aren't great, but it's not super wrong either. And it's so important to be able to break these patterns and create the changes and the shifts in that space. So that's where I love to work with people. And so it's looking at yourself and going, okay, what do I need to change? And I touched on this before. Am I looking after my physical body? And if you're not, making time for exercise. Like, the biggest reason why people don't exercise is they say they've got no time. So we all have time. It's just what are we prioritizing?
Yeah, most of us are born with 3 billion seconds. So we're billionaires in seconds. That's 3 billion, I feel like it's 75 years.
Oh wow, I've never heard that before. That's interesting. And if we did the maths as to how many seconds we've got left, it could be a bit scary. Or it could be really exciting too, depending on which way we want to look at it.
Yeah.
So I think to avoid or to help you when you're starting to feel that negative dark clouds starting to come looming in on us, it's being very aware of your thoughts. Like, what are you focusing on? So I know when we have a thought attack, you know, you can be feeling okay, and then all of a sudden you have this thought, which then attracts more negative thoughts, and out of nowhere you go from feeling kind of okay to feeling really terrible. So it's being aware of our thoughts. It's making sure we're moving our body. It's that we're eating well and we're sleeping. And a lot of these are just the basic things that we hear over and over. But with the people that I've been coaching, a lot of the people that are in the most challenged state are the people that aren't looking after the basics and the fundamentals within themselves that help them to have a healthy life. It's noticing, you know, are your finances in order? Because if your finances aren't in order, that can create a lot of stress. Are there issues in your relationships? Do you need to set better boundaries around the people that are around you because they affect how you feel? There's so many different elements that tie into the way that we're feeling about ourselves. So like I touched on before, being able to sit down and really think about what's going on in your world is the key to knowing what you need to be working on.
Definitely, I hear you out. I feel like in 2020, for the people listening to us in Australia, there was in Melbourne, it was close to a 4-month lockdown. Mm-hmm. I feel like sports and meditation were some of my biggest allies in those moments. Mm-hmm. I'm just wondering, besides sports and meditation, what other sort of habits can people implement in their life so again they are better from a mental state more time?
Mm-hmm. Okay, so there's a couple of things. Getting outside, so whether you're playing sport or not, but just being outside in the sunshine, and I'm not talking about when it's burning hot sun, but being out in the sun, going for a walk, like just doing some physical activity. And one key tip I learned when I was doing training a long time ago is when we think about our eye patterns and how we feel depending on the way the parts of the brain that we're accessing, you'll notice that generally when people are feeling down or feeling depressed, they'll be looking down and they'll be in their feelings and their self-talk. And so the best thing you can do when you're feeling depressed or you're not feeling good about where you're at is to go outside for a walk and look up. Because when you look up, you get out of your thinking space and your feeling space and you break that loop like that. So right now I'm looking up. It's like the beautiful sunshiny sky.
Oh.
You're looking up, you're just looking for something that's above eye level and it gets you out of that state. It's so magical and amazing. So when kids fall over, so I've got 3 kids when they were little and they'd fall over and they'd be looking down at, you know, so they've ridden their bike and they've busted up their knee and it's bleeding and they'd be looking at the blood crying and you say, oh my gosh, look up, can you see that bird? Then all of a sudden they're looking up for the bird and they stop crying because they're no longer in their feelings and their self-talk. So it's quite amazing. That's just one of the magical tricks. That's
a very interesting trick.
Yeah, so I always use that with kids, just getting to look up, and I guess it's also the art of distraction. So getting out, just moving your body. When I was going through a challenging state, one of my mentors had said to me, when you're really feeling challenged like you are, go outside and just walk for 10 minutes or 20 minutes, just there and back, looking up at the sky as much as you can, and when you come back, you will feel better. Because you've just got some of those natural hormones pumping through your body. You've changed your focus, you're looking up, you're no longer stuck in your head in the old pattern of thinking that you were thinking. There's also things like setting goals. A lot of people, when they start to not feel good about where they're at, they start to drop their standards with how they look after themselves or how they do life. So I think it's really important that we keep our standards of ourselves high. So if you aren't feeling great and you stop doing the things that you need to do, most people that I've coached feel really terrible at the end of the day. So their self-talk at the end of the day when they're going to bed isn't very loving. It's very critical and they're beating themselves up for all the things that they didn't do. So something that I've come up with is I actually think that discipline equals self-love. Because if we're disciplined and we're doing the things that we need to do, if we're making sure we're eating regularly, we're making sure we're getting enough sleep, we're making sure we're taking care of the needs of the things that we need to in our life, then you can go to bed at the end of the day and things still may not be great for you, but you've attended to the things that you have to, so you're helping yourself to get into the best state that you can. So that discipline equals self-love, because you're going to be feeling a whole lot better about yourself than compared to not doing the stuff that you need to do. Make sense?
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense.
I think self-love isn't bubble baths and cake and special treats. They're rewards and elements of rewards for ourselves, but I honestly think self-love is being disciplined, like I've just touched on. It's having the difficult conversations that we need to have with people if they're creating stress for us. It's speaking up and doing the things that we need to do so that we feel empowered within ourselves. I think that really is what true self-love is.
Yeah, I'm totally on the same page with you. I made I realized that there were moments in my life when because I was so focused on business, I was forgetting to take care of myself. Mm-hmm. And interesting enough, in my mind or in the moment, I was feeling that I'm working more and I'm achieving more, but I was actually achieving less. Mm-hmm. So that was a moment when I sort of decided that regardless of what happens, I need to take care of myself in the same way I take care of business, because in this way it's more balanced and my mind is right and I actually can do more with less time. Mm-hmm. So that was a moment when I started putting a recurring event in my calendar each day. It's called Kaizen, which is balance in Japanese, I think. Mm-hmm. To do those, 3 to 5 habits that I feel like keep me in a good mental shape.
Mm-hmm. Yep. And I think when we're overly focused on one area of our life, then we're neglecting other areas of our lives. So I come from a very holistic point of view with the way that I coach people and the way that I look at their lives. So we could just focus just on business or just on business outcomes. But then if relationships aren't working and that's creating a lot of stress, it's putting a lot of pressure on someone trying to achieve their business results. So we work out the relationship stuff and then you've got that balance back again. And something that I've been sharing a lot, this line I've been sharing a lot lately, is whatever you say yes to, you're saying no to something else. So if you're saying yes to working crazy hours, to only focusing on your business, you're potentially saying no to looking after your health and wellness, or no to nurturing the relationships that are important to you. And I think that's a really great distinction. When you're saying yes to solving everyone's problems and not looking after your own needs, then you're saying yes to putting yourself second. Oh, sorry, yeah, that's right. I just got myself confused there. Yeah, makes sense?
Yeah, definitely. And to a certain degree, yeah, it's a very fine balance, because the more you prioritize other things, business and so on, and the less you take care of your health, you're actually, to a certain degree, sometimes I feel like you also decrease your life because you put yourself under so much pressure. Maybe you're gaining something, but long term you're not actually gaining anything.
And I think there's times when we perhaps have to put a lot more effort into work or a lot more effort into relationships, or depending on what's showing up for us. But we've got to look at this from a holistic point of view. So if you've got a project or a deal or something that you're working on and you have to put lots of effort in, cool, that's fine. But knowing that maybe that's for 4 weeks or maybe that's for a 3-month time block, but then you go back to the holistic way of doing life. Because I don't know that it's reasonable to expect that we're always going to have perfect balance every day or every week, but it's just where are you kind of sitting overall most of the time. We have the ebbs and flows.
Definitely. Well, one thing that I've implemented at some point, and I feel like it helped me have more days that I'm balanced than not balanced, was I was sort of giving myself points for each thing that I do for myself.
Yep.
And those points, then I would sort of make a rewards list that, okay, at 15 points, at 200 points, I'm sort of rewarding myself in some shape or form. I feel like this sort of gamification of doing it helped me do more in this direction, in the right direction.
So it's like you've got that little bit of competitiveness. Once I get to this, then I can have this reward. Once I get to this number.
I was sort of competing against myself.
Yeah, I think that's a healthy way to do it.
Gamification, I feel like it's something that we did not even tap on its potential yet. I feel like I'll just give you an example that I'm truly impressed lately. I've been recently to a driving range for golf.
Okay, yep.
Here in Gold Coast called Top Golf.
Oh yes, I know it.
So I've never seen in my life a driving range that was full.
Oh wow.
This one was full on 3 stories because they have a gamification system where they have certain flags. They identify where if you hit your ball to one flag or another, and if you hit your target or not, and depending on that you get points. Because of this gamification, I feel like this place is 10 times more popular than any other golf driving range that I've seen. So I feel like gamification in dealing with your mental state, I feel like it can be quite valuable.
And yeah, that'd be really interesting.
Yeah, now I want to potentially go a bit deeper. I know that this sort of mental state balance that we're talking about is actually there's a science behind it. Like, what are the sort of fundamental chemicals that are in our brain? I know that there's 4, if I remember correctly. And
yes.
How can we know when we don't have them balanced, and how can we hack them and get them balanced?
Okay, cool. Well, it's really interesting that our body creates natural chemicals just from doing the things that we do in everyday life. And we don't have to rely on putting artificial things into our body here when we can fulfill these needs and meet these needs and create these chemicals just by doing things that are good for us. So the chemicals that we can create naturally are dopamine, oxytocin, serotonin, and endorphins. So the way that we create dopamine, so dopamine is the reward chemical. It's the chemical that we create when we complete a task, when we're doing self-care activities, when we're eating food, when we're celebrating little wins. Like, they're the things that make us feel good. So when you're using that example of your reward system, you know, as you're achieving your points and you're giving yourself those rewards, you're creating dopamine within your body. So that's really cool. And it doesn't take a lot of effort for you to create dopamine. Like, you can be doing that in little ways and big ways. Then we've got oxytocin, and that's the love hormone. So we get doses of oxytocin when we hug someone, or when we spend time with someone that we love. If you're not in an intimate relationship, it may just be that you're holding hands with someone, or are holding hands with a child, hugging a family member. You can even get that from giving someone a compliment, which is pretty cool. So there's so many different ways that we can create oxytocin within us, even playing with a dog or playing with a baby. Like, it's just that playful, nurturing kind of feeling that we get. Then there's serotonin, which is the mood stabilizer. And you touched on that you like to meditate before. So it's meditation that helps create more serotonin. It's getting out in the sun, like I touched on before when I mentioned around getting outside if you're feeling pretty down. Get out into the sun and go for a walk, so you're creating serotonin within your body. It's also doing things like swimming or cycling, walks in nature. I love getting out, and I do lots of little bush walks in my little area. So from 10 minutes from home there's a mountain, and I often will go and do a bushwalk on that mountain a couple of times a week. It's a 20-minute circuit, and it's something that I can easily incorporate into my work day. So depending on, you know, the weather and the time of year, I'll either go and do that in the morning or even do it as a lunch break, as a reward for me. And then there's endorphins, which are the painkillers. So, you know, we create endorphins when we are laughing. You know, when you're laughing and feeling really good, you get some endorphins pumping through your body. When you watch a comedy, even when we eat dark chocolate, surprisingly, so I love dark chocolate. When we're exercising is a big one for getting endorphins pumping within our body, and even using some things like essential oils. So if we can just do these activities that we're talking about, which are just pretty much easy activities that we can do every day, then we're tapping into those natural hormones and natural chemicals that we just create within ourselves. We're getting our needs met, so we're connecting with people, we're doing different things. to me, it's just a way of living a very well-balanced life equals getting the hormones and the chemicals that we need to function well.
Yeah, definitely. And that,
So it's not complicated, hey?
look, now that I'm listening to it, I realize that fundamentally, if I want to have all of them balanced, I should, for serotonin, I need to do sports and meditation. For dopamine, the way I'm conducting business, I'm doing in a gamified way where I get those points and sort of triggers the dopamine boost. Serotonin, oxytocin is from love and hugging my wife and so on, and oxytocin is from having fun. So having fun a bit on a daily basis, or it's sort of a way in which if I do all of those small things on a daily basis, I'll be in a better mental shape most of the time.
Yep. So this is just setting that really solid, easily achievable framework to do life from. That's the way I look at it.
Yeah.
It's not hard, but we make it hard. We think we need special answers. We think we need special tools or resources. A lot of what I coach people around is actually getting back to basics. And a big one that helps to reduce stress, because what creates stress is a feeling of lack of time, even getting down to time management techniques. Like, a lot of people don't manage their time or plan their time well. So it's amazing what you can do in a day when you just start to actually look at how you're spending your day and how you're spending your time.
Yeah. Now, so I see the light is green. Maybe we get a bit of dopamine now.
Okay. That's fun.
So that the thing, that's oxytocin or dopamine or both?
I think both. Well, you made me laugh. I'm not holding your hand, like holding on for dear life yet.
Yeah.
Funny.
So are there certain things that could indicate to us that we maybe are not, we have one of those four depleted? I don't know. I remember that procrastination might be a sign of not having enough dopamine. Like for the other three, are there certain signs, or even for dopamine, are there other signs?
Well, if I want to touch on procrastination, I think often we're doing that when we're not really clear about the reason why we're doing what we're doing, or we're not really clear about what it is that we need to be doing, so you start to procrastinate. When you talk about deficiencies in those other areas, I think if you think back to the things that we were saying to do in order to build those hormones, or to get those hormones and happy hormones pumping within our body, if you're not doing those things, then that tells you that you need to do it. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
That's my very technical response.
Yeah. So I know 2020 was a very challenging year for a lot of people across the world. So I'm wondering what would be the first steps for somebody to do, in your opinion, when they feel like they are depressed and when they have potentially suicidal thoughts?
Okay, so I was actually, you probably wouldn't know this, Dan, but I was dealing with someone that was in that state at the start of the year, a family member, and that was quite challenging. And so just understand that this happens, and it can be really difficult when you're observing that, particularly when it's someone close to you. And even it can be scary when you have those thoughts within yourself. So I think the most important thing is, if you're feeling it, then you're reaching out and you're getting some support. If you notice that this is someone around you and you're noticing that their behaviour is changing, then it's talking to them and it's asking, are you okay? And reaching out and really listening for the answer there. We have needs that we need to be met as a human, and Tony Robbins talks about this. I'm going slightly off track here, but I'll loop back in a moment. So Tony Robbins talks about our 6 core needs. Have you heard of them before?
No.
So we have a need for variety, we have a need for certainty, we have a need for significance, we have a need for love and connection, and then we also have a need for growth and contribution. So and we have 2 of those needs are generally our top drivers. So they're individual for each of us. I know that I'm driven by variety and connection. Some people are, and so I love it when things are different and things are changing. Some people are really driven by certainty and they need to know that everything is all organised and it's going to be the same and it's very structured. My need for connection is I love to interact with people, which is why I love coaching, because my need for connection is met in a really high way. When people have a need for significance, it's not saying I'm so significant, it's about being acknowledged, that people are noticing them or that they are bringing value or providing value. And then the growth and contribution, like growth is evolving and growing as a person, and contribution is how we're helping other people and how we're helping others. So often when people start to spiral down, those needs aren't being met in a resourceful way. And you can either meet those needs resourcefully or unresourcefully. And this is a topic I could dig deep into and probably talk about for 15 minutes. But when we notice what our drivers are, and you could Google this, like if anyone wanted to Google this to find out more information, because I don't think we have time to really dig deep into it today. When you understand what those drivers are, and you're seeing how those needs aren't being met. So often when people are getting into a depressed state, they actually start to not connect with people anymore, so they'll withdraw. So in my experience with the person that I was supporting, reaching out and connecting with them was really helpful, even though they didn't necessarily want that, because when people are in that space, they're often feeling like they have no value, that they can't really contribute, that they're just a burden to everybody, and their thoughts are really negative and aren't true. So it's really what they're thinking really isn't true. With that person that I was supporting, I just invited them into my home and spent time with them to show them all the reasons why they are valued and what they have to live for. And I'm not saying this is what you do for everybody. I'm just saying this was my personal example. But bringing in that connection so that person no longer felt isolated and felt that they were connecting again, and without me trying to fix them or change them, just having them involved and having them supported until they started to feel better within themselves, and then having conversations around what changes do you think you need to make, and not in a judgmental way but in a very encouraging, supportive way. And from there there's been quite a massive shift, along with getting some professional support in that way, because I'm not trained to support people in depth in that way.
Yeah.
Did I answer your question? I feel like I went off on a few little tangents there.
So definitely. I feel like if it's yourself, then reaching out to a coach if you're depressed, and potentially maybe a suicide hotline
definitely
is valuable. And if it's somebody else, then sort of engaging, getting close, trying to see what potential needs they don't have met, and sort of helping them with those needs. I remember my father passed away a few years ago, and he a lot of times was telling me that he's scared to not be a burden on the family. Mm-hmm. And one of the things that I was doing, I was always giving him things that I could do, just because I knew that it sort of felt him like he's contributing to my success and helping me. And he was I remember that he used to feel very, very important that he's contributing, because between my father and I there was quite this big gap. He was 52 years between us.
Okay.
It was very hard for him to actually contribute that, but I sort of made an exercise of giving him things to do to help me out, just so he feels like he's very relevant and important, and to feel less of a burden or think like that.
That's really beautiful, because people that are depressed often no longer have a sense of purpose. So you gave him a sense of purpose, or things to do, or ways to contribute in a way that didn't feel like it was a burden, like you said, or that maybe that you're not trying to help him or rescue him, you're just including him.
Yeah.
And so I think when you can tap back into purpose, so a lot of people have lost their purpose, that's when they start to spiral down into a negative black hole. And it's not easy to find your purpose when you're feeling terrible about yourself. So this is where you can start to do the things like, as we've touched on, doing those basic things to support you to feel good, to get those happy hormones starting to be produced within your body. And then looking at the things that you love to do, what actually brings you joy. And I know when you're in a dark space, nothing brings you joy, mostly. Like, it's really hard to get to that space of feeling joy again. when you can get to that point, you can start to tap into purpose again, or find a way that you can contribute, or find a way that your life has meaning. That's when you start to re-engage and you start to feel that better. Like, there's so many different layers to this. So I'm certainly not saying there's, you know, just a couple of things we can do to snap out of depression and to feel better. But when we do all of these different things, they all contribute to helping you to feel whole and healthy and better on the inside. And of course, in all of this, I'm also stressing the fact that you speak to a professional that's trained in supporting you with mental health challenges when they actually do become a significant problem.
Yeah. Any closing call to actions to people, how they can reach you? What are the topics on which they should reach out to you? And
So I've been thinking a lot about what area do I love to coach people in, and there isn't actually one specific area. So I do call myself a personal development coach, and what I really love is helping people to feel empowered. And so it's about helping people to release the blocks from the past so they can create the things that they want to create in their future, and to feel better about themselves, and to have a sleep at night factor where they go to sleep at night and they just feel happy and peaceful within. Because I think at the end of the day, if we have a sense of peace and calm at the end of the day and we can sleep well at night, I think that's a major win in life, because a lot of people don't feel that way at all. So I help people in many different ways, as I've touched on, and you can get in touch with me. My website is kyliethecoach.com, so you can reach out and get in touch with me there. And I work with men, I work with women, particularly in their 40s, because I really resonate with that age group. I've been through a lot of plot twists myself, and I understand the journey of life that we're on.
Beautiful, yeah. Thank you for your time, Kylie. I really appreciate it. High five.
Thank you, Dan. It's been an awesome drive.